Another live show, late, but we're getting this down packed, y'all. One show at a time. Felix, how you doing, man?
Doing good, doing good.
I know you had a pretty busy week.
It was a great week. It was a great week, especially with what happened last weekend. Obviously, enough to keep me busy. The white car is on its way to Porsche. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, so, and for those of you who actually were at the track this weekend, came by, I know there was a couple of you guys that came by to the garage. Let's not spoil anything, okay? Let's not spoil anything. We're gonna have a video coming out very, very soon about everything that went on during this last track event. But today's episode, what are we talking about today, Felix? What are we talking about today's live show?
Today's live show, we're basically talking about everything you chop out of my videos when I made the video that speaks about electronic stability control and traction control.
Right. So, and in that video, what we were discussing was kind of at least your journey on whether or not you should turn it off. But I mean, we saw some comments in the reel that we posted where people are just like, no, I don't drive with those things on anyway. So, and how do you feel about that, knowing that there's already people who are running it off? Should there be like a skill level requirement to kind of feel comfortable with turning those off? What do you feel about that?
I kind of deal it's like the cards you're dealt, right? Some people, like in the BMW community, they struggle because the stability control that the car has is not that great. So in order to go relatively quick, it's got to be all off, right? So that's just the card you're dealt. You hop into an older car that's a classic. No such thing as traction control, no such thing as ABS, that's a whole nother topic. But I feel like if you have the aids, it's definitely good to learn with them on, as long as you're aware that they're doing some of the heavy lifting for you, right? First, use them as a parachute, and then second, I guess the second or third step is to try to get off of them for sure.
I mean, so at least for me, I know it's doing a lot of heavy lifting for me, because I can only imagine that those handful of mistakes that I made, one at COTA, one at VIR, and then multiple at Flat Rock. Had I turned off everything, we probably would have written off a car already.
I wouldn't go to that extent, right? Because the tires that you were on, like they'll slide to a decent amount of slip angle before they really let go. But there are plenty of times where you start seeing that ESC button on, or ESC light on the dash just blowing and blowing, or lighting up, and you're getting close, right?
I mean, I felt like I was close enough. I mean, anytime I have to counter steer, I'm like, oh crap. And I get it after watching a few of your videos. Counter steering is a part of driving. I mean, I see Ryan do it all the time.
It is, yeah.
Anybody who's going fast is doing some counter steering on there.
Absolutely.
But with regards to ESC and traction control, you mentioned in the video that ESC is usually one of the first things that gets turned off, right? Let expand on that just a little bit for me.
Okay, so before I expand, I do want to tell, for those of you who are watching, when we say ask questions, this is the time to do it. Share your opinions, share your thoughts, and we'll get to you. But in the Porsches, there's basically two stages of turning it all off, right? And I've also heard that even once they're all off, they're still kind of working in the background helping you. Sure, right? Because with all them on, you could go for a loop, and with all them off, you could still go for a loop. Anyways, the first step in that we use in the Porsches, or that you can take off, is ESC, or electronic stability control. So it's basically the place where I found the biggest gain where turning that off helps you the most in lap time is on corner in, right? Because you're telling the car to turn, and if you have just a little bit of excess rotation and it's on, the car is gonna kind of start doing funny things, and then once you get to power, I'll get into that in a little bit, but that's traction control. So electronics, the way we say it is like, turning off ESC just allows better rotation, but 90% of the incidents that happen on track are heavy throttle related, and that's where TC comes into play. And TC is what does, like I said, the heavy lifting.
Okay, so, and this is where I'm hoping things get a little spicy, okay? So, what was it, last year? last year TJ went off-roading in the GT4 RS at Coda?
Early this year. I think it was early this year.
We're losing track of time.
We're losing track of time, yeah,
But
for
one
sure.
of our
It's October.
one of our most viral videos on Instagram is TJ taking the GT4 RS on. Well, it was on Nankangs. The Nankangs were to the point of almost being corded,
Yep.
and he went off-roading. He spun that car all the way around. Now, if you watch the viral video on Instagram, we had about like 400,000 views on that. TJ blamed it on the
The
nannies,
nannies.
right? ESC and traction control, right? Do I have it so far?
You're on track.
I'm on track. Okay. So, one of my jobs when I start editing videos is I have to start finding clips that relate to what you're talking about.
Okay.
And I want you to pull up the YouTube video. And in that YouTube video, we added this little clip. Let's go ahead and migrate us over there to that.
This one?
The YouTube video.
Where are we at? Here.
See what
This
I'm,
YouTube
okay,
video.
so this very video right here. So what this is outlining is how ESC works, right? And they're using an example of swerving to avoid hitting an object on the road. And as you can see, the braking is happening at different corners of the car to help straighten the car back out,
Correct.
to avoid spinning out, right? And that's all it's outlining here. So it can fishtail one way or fishtail the other. Now, go ahead and bring up the TJ's video.
Okay.
So if you didn't watch it, let's go ahead and watch it real quick right now.
This is gonna be the V-Box video.
This is the V-Box video of TJ. So he's getting ready to go into the carousel here.
Chops the throttle out. Car gets
Okay,
it
it's
set.
starting to get squirrely and he's off. Woo, really good spin there. Okay, so why am I bringing this up? In TJ's video, the excuse was the nannies.
Correct.
The comments lit TJ up. Well, what they say, you don't blame the tools for a bad job or whatever.
Yeah. What was what the guy said? It's like a carpenter blaming the tools for the shit job.
Let's show them this perspective because this is actually a pretty good view. Go ahead and let that one play. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is for as much crap as we gave TJ, based off of the understanding that I now have of how ESC works, I can see his excuse being true. I can see his excuse being true. I think that there may be some validity to the ESC contributing to his error. Now, don't get me wrong, he was also on well-worn
Rubber.
Well-worn rubber. So they were actually, I think they were corded, weren't they?
They're super close. Yeah.
They were super close to being corded. However, I don't know if it's because TJ rode passenger with me at Barber, but I think there's some validity to that point now. What do you think?
I always
Come
stand
on.
in.
Come on.
I always stand in the middle for everything. I do feel that once you're heavy into ESC and TC, it's two people doing two completely different things to solve the same problem,
Oh, yeah, okay.
right?
Yeah.
So that's like getting two people who are cooking and they're both wanting to do their own recipes at the same time. Like, it's just not gonna work out, right? So that's one way to see it. Now, I have obviously been in situations where the car's been out of control, and when it's too far out of control like that, I think you reach like a point of no return if you really start fighting the car. So if you're ever like in a big slide with our cars, it's probably best to just kind of like cancel the lap. And you know what I mean? Gather it up, don't fight it, let the car do what it's gonna do, because the car is gonna try to do what's in your best interest.
Yeah, and Larry says TJ spinning is par for the course, isn't it?
Jeez.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, that weekend he spun the car and then he went passenger seat and somebody else spun the car with him passenger seat. Hey, Larry, you might be right on that one. But I do see what you're saying, right? That it is kind of a double-edged sword in that manner where you have ESC thinking that they're helping you because I don't know if maybe he had it in sport mode because I usually don't touch any of the dials. I mean, I just get in the car and drive. So I don't know if TJ went in there, put it in sport mode, and if sport mode, you know, turns off certain aids, or changes the behavior of certain aids. But it wouldn't surprise me if he's driving, the car senses something happening, tries to correct it, and then if you look at the video, he's making some pretty big corrections. Like, it's not just a little bit of a correction. He almost flipped that steering wheel upside down at the beginning. So I can see what you're saying, but I could also see how the ESC could have contributed to making that. So maybe, I don't know, I guess the question is, would he have been able to save it had the nannies, the way he put it, been off?
I am a strong believer that he has the skill to be able to save it. When he was running the car, I guarantee you he probably just hopped in the car, put it in sport, forgot to turn everything off. TJ is a really capable driver. Then again, he should have known the tires he was on, because I got out of the car and I told him, like, the car doesn't feel that great. The rear is super loose. So he should have kind of expected it. But TJ and TJ Fashion is going to go out there and push the limits, right? So
That he did.
was it recoverable? I think so, but it was recoverable if he was going to give up on it. There's no way you have a slide like that and continue the lap, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think TJ's like a give up kind of guy.
I mean, no, certainly not, because if you watch the rest of the clip, he wasted no time to get back on track.
No.
He let the car pass, and then he went right back on track. But then this kind of leads me to the question, right, where at a certain level, is turning off the nannies in these production cars, right? Is turning off the driver aids in these production cars like the next step, right? TJ is a pro driver. He drives a Ligier, which is on a different level than these, than these production Porsches. So I think my question to you is, once you get to that level of driving, are you better off turning off everything before, going out on a session, going out on a race, whatever the case is?
Well, there's so many factors that go into it. And like I say it, if I'm feeling it and I've done many laps in the car, that's when I'll say, like, let's do this. You definitely have to have a different mindset. Is it worth it? Again, every person that's gonna try to do it has to ask themselves the question. But like I said, each one of us in our cars, no one is out there in a bone stock car with bone stock alignment, with bone stock tires. So the fact that we're adding aero components to the car, suspension components to the car, sticky rubber, we're gonna be operating so outside of that car's parameters.
Yeah.
And to me, honestly, sometimes it just surprises me that we throw this and that to the car and they still kind of run super well with everything on.
Yeah, and I think for me at least, one of the things that comes to mind is that we're not out there, it feels like you're racing, especially when you have a car ahead of you and you're chasing it down, you're close. It might feel like you're racing, but you're not racing, right? So to me, I personally never look at those buttons and go, let me turn these off. No, but at my level, I also don't think it's worth it, because I still haven't developed the skills. I'm just now being able to understand, what it feels like to have the car slide, and then when does a slide turn into potentially car spinning out, right? And I'm just now getting the hang of giving it that counter steer. Because we've mentioned this in past videos where I've been stuck, where Ryan is sitting in the passenger seat, like we were at ECR, and was it 3A, 3B at ECR? I think that's the turn.
Yes.
3A, 3B. That corner just feels really sketchy to me. So turning the car in, I felt really sketchy, and then it just starts kind of the tail starts to come around the car, and Ryan's like, counter steer,
yeah, like, hello, wake up.
Getting engaged. So I think for people at my level, I'm leaving everything on, and I would encourage everybody to do the same.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's good to leave it on. These cars, whether it's a Porsche, Ferrari, Corvette, McLaren, with everything on, the cars are still going to be incredibly capable, and you're still going to be safe.
Yeah.
Right. That's honestly the most important thing. Now, like I said on the video, I had already a ton of track days and I knew that car well. It still kind of didn't come from me to say, you know what, I'm just gonna run everything off, right? It literally took TJ hopping in and saying like,
It's
we're gonna
funny.
try this today, right?
And if you watch the actual V-Box video, TJ's like trying to look through his helmet, turning everything off, and you're like, calm down, what are you doing? So you even had your reservations when he was doing it.
Yeah.
But that just goes to show again, you know, shout out to TJ. He does have a very high level of driving. You know, he's been driving carts and cars now for a long time, and he obviously sees that you are progressing enough to know what you're getting into when you turn off those driver aids.
Yeah, and I've also seen, right, where someone has like an arrive and drive program. They arrive to Road Atlanta. This was the exact track. He arrives to Road Atlanta with a pro coach. And the conversation starts real quick, right? What he's trying to do, what he's trying to learn. And the pro coach tells him, well, if you want to learn your car or if you want to become one with your car, you have to drive with everything off.
So let me just get into that portion, right? Because as somebody who I prefer to have somebody in the seat, and maybe that's just me kind of relying on you guys to be like an additional driver aid. But at that point, if you're getting into the car with somebody that's telling you to do that, again, this is to me determined by your skill level. You know, if you feel comfortable doing that, by all means. But for somebody at my level, if I get into the car and a random guy gets in, he's like, yeah, what are you doing with all these driver aids on? Like, you're not actually doing these things. The car is doing these things. And I'm just like, no, keep those things on, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, not only am I in the car, but you're also in the car. The car isn't mine. These are John's cars. I'm not trying to risk anything, and I'm not going for a hot lap, right? I'm more concerned with learning about the skills required to drive rather than setting a flyer. But sorry, I just feel like I had to throw that in there. You know, but you can continue your point about Road Atlanta and the skid marks that were on the floor after that session.
Yeah, so the guy goes from running everything on to running everything off and doesn't really understand what's been taken away from him. And I think that's the danger, right? Because at some point, I feel like, and the reason I say this is that I feel like everyone should migrate away from all the aids. And that's simply so you can see how much is being taken, how much is being given to you, right? Whether it's stability, whether it's the fact that you go from 0% throttle to wide open throttle without rolling, and the car just takes it, right? For example, Ryan too at TJ did this exact same thing with Ryan at Barber, and obviously Ryan is incredibly capable. First time they go through 5 left-hand hairpin, Ryan just mats the throttle, lights him up, car's full sideways, and they're kind of just drifting around the track. And yes, again, Ryan is a super capable driver, but Ryan realized, shit, the car's doing a lot for me, right?
Yeah. I think I've heard him say that before, and I think what's going on, Matt? Matt brings up a good point. I think it's important to keep them on until you are driving at the limit enough that it's starting to interfere with you going faster. So I think that's a really good way to put it. And you know, while I was working on this video, I used the sim to kind of gather some clips together. One of the initial clips that we saw at the beginning, and in iRacing, you can turn traction control up to 11 or down to 0. And when you turn it up to 11, you can come out of turn 11 at COTA. You don't even have to point you can just slap the throttle flat on the car, and you're gonna be fine. But the second you turn it off, there is no recovering after if you try to do that exact same thing. Yeah. So I think it's important to make sure that you understand what's happening when you decide to turn those things off. And if you don't understand what those things actually do, then you're probably not ready to turn them off. Do you think that's a fair thing to say?
I think that's absolutely fair, but sometimes like you don't know how much is left or how greener it is on the other side until you get there, right? So a lot of these people will feel like, yeah, I can be flat down turn 2 at COTA, right? Super high speed right-hander. But how much power is the car actually giving you, right? If you have all aids on. And I'm not gonna say, well, just take them off, go flat down 2 again, right? Because that's not gonna be good, but it's just hard. It's it's hard, and that's why I said in the video, if you're gonna do this, do it in a controlled environment, or at least at a track like COTA, right, that has plenty of runoff. And,
Oh, yeah.
and you still don't want to spin through the S's because you're entering like a buck 20. But realize that if the car gets a little bit upset between 3 and 4, you could cut the inside of 5, or you could cut the, you know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
Because I've been there.
I know exactly what you mean. 'Cause not to do with traction control, but when I was in the car with Ryan, we went into turn 3. We went over the rumble strips. I landed, still had wheel in the car, hit the brakes, and I was like, dude, we're going through the S's. We're not
Yeah.
driving around them. So I would say, doing that at somewhere like Barber, for instance, phew, that's scary. To be running with no aids on at Barber, I think that would be scary. ECR would probably be another very scary place to be running without the aids. To me, driving is already a lot. Turning off aids would just be me signing my own warrant.
Yeah, but what if you are running a 2-minute 200.00 and you're trying to look for a 10th, right? And you've been working at it for 3 years.
But that just
Like-
goes back to what Matt is saying, right? Matt is saying that if you've already progressed enough to where you're going, you have an understanding of the car, you have an understanding of what these aids do for you and what they're inhibiting you from doing, then yeah, at that point, because I think you can also turn them off at different levels, right? Sometimes it's like you can press it once and it may turn off just ESC, or is that just on like normal street cars?
On the Porsches, it's actually you hit the ESC button and that turns off just ESC. And then if you hit and hold the TC button, that turns off both automatically.
So okay, so I guess to me it would be for somebody, me in your scenario, right? I would start playing around with turning off maybe
ESC.
ESC first, seeing what I can produce with that, and then kind of learning that a little bit more and see what it's doing for me and what it's taking away before I'm just going to go, turn off traction control altogether.
Yeah.
And I think a more phased approach is a safer way to take it, because I think Matt is completely on the money when he says that if it's inhibiting you from going past where you currently are, I don't see why not. But then I guess my question would be, at what point is it still driver skill that's inhibiting you before you decide to do something to the car to make you go faster?
So are you talking setup now, or what are you talking
Well,
about?
I'm just saying, right? Because so I'm not running sub 20 laps even in the GT4 RS, right? So we'll just use us as a barometer for this example. You're running a sub 20 easily with ESC and traction control on. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not to that point yet with all the aids on. So if I start feeling really comfortable, let's just say I'm getting stuck at a 222, is that safe for me to go, well, I'm having a hard time getting out of there, turn off all the aids? Would that be the next progression?
No, the next progression, like you said, it would be to peel off one layer out of the 2 layers, which would be to peel off ESC. Again,
But hold on, but to me that's completely bypassing the point, right? Is you're removing something from the car that's helping you keep the car on track, whereas others are still having the aids, still able to achieve faster lap times without having to remove those
them. No, I get it.
So like, at what point do I go, I need to maybe get a coach in the car, maybe go back to
Fundamentals.
Go back to fundamentals,
Yeah.
and work on that before removing those aids.
Yeah, I think, I don't think Dave said it best. He commented in one of our videos and he said, this is a little example and I'll read his comment. It says, was at Ford Performance when I bought his GT3R, the pro driver that demonstrated all off versus on in track mode. The time difference between off and Nanny's on was 1.25 seconds at the track. It says car is faster with everything off. The reality, it's risk versus reward and skill versus a car driving the driver. Let me read that again. Reality, it's risk versus reward and skill versus a car driving the driver. There are lots of guys focused on lap times and only have TC and stability saving them 4 or 5 times a lap. So to your point, right? It's should you reach a certain lap time before you even consider to turn any of these off? I think so, right? Because if not, it's a slippery slope. If you can't get your car to a certain lap time, if you decide to get there with ESC and TC off, you're gonna be in trouble quick.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's a good way to put it, is that it's risk to reward ratio right there, right? Is how much are you willing to risk to gain maybe a few tenths, right? Because at least for somebody in my perspective, when I drove the 4RS on Hancocks for the first time, I slow rolled that. Like I was not, I didn't jump into it and go, oh, I got stickier rubber, I can go faster. And I get it, that's with me being at a more novice level at the time. I would probably see some regression at first, turning off driver aids, because at least in my mind, I would have to go through and Larry commented this, see how the car and you respond, right?
Yep.
And I think that would probably be the more conservative approach that I would take, would be turning off those aids and slow rolling my way through a lap, even if it means going slower than my lap with everything on.
Man, it just gets me to think, like, there's probably a formula we can create on the achievable lap time you should get to before considering.
There's only one way to find out, is have Felix turn everything on and see what's the fastest he can go.
No.
And then turn everything off.
Yeah, dude. We're
At that point, we would probably need to put like a whole roll cage in the car for you.
yeah.
I think it would be safer that way, because you're already on the limit. Hold on, are you turning everything off to get your 216? So you're already out there, okay.
Yeah, and the reason I need to do that in our car is because the time we did the 16 was on Hancocks, and the front tire is smaller than normal, and the rear tire is kind of what the normal tire should be, or the aspect ratio, the rolling distance, whatever. So the car doesn't know that it has a smaller front tire, right? So if I leave everything on, the car's kind of just like sputtering out of the corner, because it's like the front is moving faster. Yeah, the front's moving faster than the rear. So the car's pulling power. So even if you turn ESC on, and once the front tires get a little bit inflated, the car will be a little bit happier. But it is that. You have to turn everything off sometimes to just get maximum rotation out of the car. But yes, you have to be on your toes. I spoke to Sterling this weekend, and Sterling was struggling with his car rotating, and he was like, he brought up the greatest point and what we're talking about. He said he was struggling to get the car rotated, but for the next session, he was going to try ESC off, because he didn't know if it was a balance problem or it was kind of the car just hindering him or correcting him, not allowing him to do that, right? So imagine now, I'll put you in this scenario where you've been driving a car with ESC the whole time, and you've been telling your mechanic, oh, the car has no front grip, doesn't turn, doesn't do this. And then you get a pro driver in the car, and the imbalance is so far off just because you've been driving it with driver aids, and the car's like that because of tire or a certain choice. So
this is a very slippery slope, because that was going to be my next question, is mods, right? So what you're just talking about, the car doesn't understand that you are changing certain characteristics of the car, whether you're adding stickier rubber or you're adding aero to the car. At what point are you modifying your car so much that in order to take advantage of everything that you've put into it, requires you to turn off those driver aids? Like, at what point does that happen?
I think it's almost the second you take it from a 200 treadwear tire to an R compound, honestly. I think that's when it happens. And then if you put it on R7s, there's always a big compromise on sizes. So sometimes, like Larry on the GT4S, I already read it. Larry on the GT4S, he's running like a shorter rear. So the car, he's having a rotation problem. So I don't know if it has to do any with his aspect ratios being wrong, and then the car thinking it's slipping or pulling power. I know what you're gonna say, that Larry said that Matt is an expert at spinning a GT4 RS.
Matt is bringing the context to the conversation because he spun the car with it on, with it off, ESC off. So I don't know. To me, this is one of those things where I guess you can say it's a case by case basis. If you're not accustomed to driving with it off all the time, expect for there to be some oopsies that happen, and you're gonna go for a pretty cool ride that you may have not. Well, look,
It can happen with everything on.
Exactly. So because we have a video where it's just mistakes. Like people have the GT2 RS is probably a really good example of this, and this goes back to your original point. And I think somebody else may have said this in there as well.
Simon did.
Simon, where
Yep.
most of the mistakes that happen actually have nothing to do with the aids. It has everything to do with you having your foot too far into the
Inputs.
throttle.
Yeah, it's all inputs. Simon, I'm sorry to say, but you're tracking the wrong car. It's a great car, but man, the GT2 RS is such a handful. But he's getting close. But once he ends up mastering that car, he'll be quick in anything.
I tell you what, though, for that that resonator that he ate at ECR,
Ooh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure if he would have swerved, ESC would have helped you there. All right, Simon, ESC would have helped you.
Yes, he had 130.
I don't know how that would have.
Just a little whoo, and then whoo, he's off into the dirt track.
Oh, well, hey, he could be checking out the dirt track for us
Checking out the
at the
dirt
same
track.
time. Maybe we should take the Dakar there. Man,
We're not doing that.
shut down already. All right. But I mean, to me, it's all very dependent on the person, their skill level, the setup. If you're in the intermediate group hanging out with me, don't even think about it at that point. It's not worth it. I don't think there's any inherent advantage at that point to turn all those aids off when you're still in the intermediate group, right? You haven't even shown that you have the skill to move up groups. So let alone chasing lap time by turning off driver aids. Because I've seen other cars, like I had a GR86 spin out right in front of me coming out of turn 12, and I'm pretty sure they probably had all the aids on. And I think that was in the novice group, or maybe that was in the intermediate group. I don't remember. But I think, at my level, there's no real value, so to speak, in turning those things off. Now, for those of you in the advanced group, I think that's a different story. I think that's something that you kind of should feel out and go from there. See how it feels, but do it like you said, somewhere like COTA, because ECR, that would be. We've seen cars catch on fire
We've seen cars catch on fire
at ECR. Let's not do that.
I'm not gonna say names, but it was.
You're ready to drop the bombs.
It's a Lotus. That's fine.
Is it?
It's not. It's not. They're still waiting for parts. Anyways, man, turning TC. The other thing that just stays in my mind, and Matt's all on the how do you, good point, this is adding an element of confusion to understanding how the car is really balanced. Let me just throw this wrench at this whole thing. If you and I are in the same car, we go into the brake zone, I'm driving, you're driving, whatever, and I say hit the brakes. The likelihood of us both saying, if we both write it down, the likelihood of us both saying that we broke at this certain marker is very low. I can guarantee you, I'll say I broke at the 160, and you're gonna be like, nah, you're breaking at the 145, right? So it's perspective, and then we go back to what a balanced car, it's also perspective. A lot of stuff in the track is perspective. So we go back to balancing a car with driver aids on, right? A pro could hop in the car, or you could hop in the car, I could hop in the car, and I could say it's perfectly balanced, right? But what does balanced mean for me, right? And then what does balance mean for you? So it's honestly tough, even helping friends, it's just the biggest struggle. Setting up cars for John is also the biggest struggle. And the way it ends up happening is I put the car to where I think he likes it, and then he ends up giving a comment or two I like a little bit of this more, and then that's what he feels his balance is, or what he prefers, right? And then that's a whole nother thing. I need to consider that John's driving with aids on, right? So if the car's having an issue or it's not turning here, it's not doing this, or it's pushing a lot through here, I need to drive the car the way he's driving it.
So I guess what you're saying is that make a decision, right? Whether you're going to drive with the aids all the way on or all the way off, and then tune the car to that. Because everybody has a preference, right? I mean, I think you for the most part like a more pointier car, one that rotates easier. That makes me uncomfortable to an extent, but that's just the difference in skill level there, right? And what you can handle versus what I can handle. So I think to an extent that might be the better approach. I mean, I like what Simon is saying there. You know,
What do you say?
don't turn them off until you know what they do. That's pretty simple, and I think that's the main point. You know, whether you set up the cars to be fast with the nannies on or off, just be prepared for what happens when you turn them off. I think that's the simplest way to put it.
Yeah. Because it could be a completely different car.
I mean, in theory, it should be.
Yeah.
In theory, it should be, because I mean, even when you go into something like the sim, you adjust the traction control in any direction, and it does change the characteristics of the car. I mean, like I said, I was able to just slap the throttle as much as I wanted to with the traction control all the way on. But I think running without traction control is probably scary, because there are some cars in iRacing that do not have any traction control, and they are a nightmare to drive.
Yeah.
They're a nightmare to drive.
At the end of the day, all these buttons in the car, they're a tool for you, right? Say it's raining, use it to your advantage, right? Like the car is not gonna, if you just happen to give it an abrupt input, the car is not gonna let you give it that input, right?
Yeah.
So leave everything on. The other ones we had talked about previously, right, was the suspension button. A lot of these guys have it turned off because they have aftermarket suspension. But if you're going out on a rainy session, remove that suspension button on the new Thread RS, make it all soft, right? They're all tools, and you need to learn how to use the tools in your toolbox if you want to go faster.
I'm not going to argue with that. I'm not going to argue with that at all. I'm using all the tools, guys. I'm using every single one of them, to include the instructor sit in passenger seat, because even to an extent, I kind of equate that to, you know, in sim racing, driver aids includes the line on the track.
Correct.
And you can have the line on, you could turn it off to a certain degree when you first get started. The instructor kind of acts as your line.
Yep.
Letting you know, and then at a certain point, it turns into more coaching where they're making corrections.
Instructing versus coaching.
Video is on our channel. Make sure you go check that out, because you know Felix is an instructor, a pretty good one too, by the way. So if you guys are curious about how you guys can get more lap time, I would say harass him to sit in the car for at least one of your sessions, half a session. Remember, he leads to drive as well. I'm not trying to sell you out too much.
There's going to be a lucky person for the PCA event that's going to get me as their novice instructor.
I'm going to drop the dime on you. Chin let you instruct me at VIR, so it's not just PCA. You have this video pulled up. Did you want to go over that?
No.
Okay, I'm just making sure, because I've been eyeballing it. So I mean, I think we've kind of already beat the traction control conversation to a degree. It's driver based, setup based. All these things kind of have to come together. I mean, shoot, my opinion is my opinion. If you're in the intermediate group and you want to go ahead and turn off all your, or maybe you might be in a car that doesn't have any aids, right? Because there are people who are running cars that don't have those aids. Run them. But let's do we have anything in the chat before we close this one out?
Larry's just saying, I like a pointy car until I turned ESC off, then it was a whole new ball game. So yeah, he felt like my car has a ton of front end, but maybe it did have a ton of front end, but still had somewhat of a stable rear, because the car was kind of keeping it all together. But once you turn ESC off, it's gonna let the rear move a little bit. So he then found himself in positions that he hadn't been before, which was off track, I think at turn 4, turn 5. Obviously not a place where you want to be. And the one thing I said in the video, and I want to retouch on this, is if you're not going to transition to either turn ESC or TC off because you feel like it's a big step, there is some value to keeping your car under the traction control limit. What I mean is, instead of turn 11 left-hand hairpin, instead of turning the wheel all the way and then flooring it, right? The car's not gonna give you power at all, right?
It'll almost be like you're driving outside of like on the low end of the power band where you're bogging out. in the
Exactly,
corner.
exactly. The car's gonna start pulling power. The car's gonna be like, you have way too much steering for the power that you're giving it. So when you're out on track, if you don't wanna turn aids off, that's totally fine. But start playing with using all the track, which is gonna minimize the amount you turn the car, right? And then on exit, you also need to use all the track because that's also going to mean that you can unwind faster, and then follow the unwind by a smooth throttle. And like I said, start feeding the throttle as if you had traction control off, because if you stay under the traction control limit, I feel like even with all the aids on, the cars will be faster. Then you give it an abrupt input, the car's just gonna sputter.
I get what you're saying.
So start getting smoother, and that'll be your first next step. Once you dial all that in,
Well,
think about the rest.
Not to keep going down this road, but
Beating the dead horse.
Who's to say that people don't understand that they're doing that until they turn traction control off, and then now instead of being able to get on that throttle and have the car be bogged down, now they're spinning out. So maybe turning off traction control might be a coach, so to speak, where it might be showing you that you have inherently bad habits when driving a car.
And then there's the whole concept of what you think you're doing and what you're actually doing
But
in
then,
a car.
Yeah, at that point, we're talking about data systems as well. But I think we've gotten the point down. I did want to go back to a comment not related to traction control. On the last live show, it says 3 generations, 1 roof commented, what's the verdict on the Hoosier Track Attack Pros? Also, what's your current thinking on running 19-inch wheels on the 992 GT3?
19-inch wheels on a 992 GT3, we've already done it. Our Gentian Blue is currently out of rotation because it was going to be traded on another car. We put like 9,000 miles on it with it on 19s. This was 19s over stock PCCBs. The front clearance is actually, we put a high clearance wheel, and what that means is that it's pretty much, the barrel is a little bit thinner, and we did that from Forge Line and 812 wheels. But if you get some clag there, it'll still cause scrapage between the caliper and the barrel. So 19s do work. If you want to be super comfortable on 19s, get an AP brake kit or a PFC brake kit and call it done. Now, the 992, the biggest struggles we've seen when you go down to 19s is the tire choices. So there's this thing
I
called...
thought you were going to say stability control.
No,
ESC.
traction control. Yes, so is aspect ratios. The front tire, once you go down to 19s, you usually find like 275, 35, or at 35 aspect ratio tires for the front and the rear. So it's really hard to stagger like the stock tires. Mm-hmm. So the car's gonna be super fast under braking, but on the way out, again, since the car has different size tires than stock, it's gonna feel like it's sliding, so it's not gonna let you roll power. And I actually did this comparison at Barber, 991.2 versus 992.1 on the same tire. And the newer car, the new 992, would kill it on entry, but the car couldn't lay the power down on exit. Biggest or the best solution as of now is gonna be running Hankooks. And I don't say it because it's a better tire. I think the medium compound Hankook is similar to an R7, but that is a solution because the front Hankook is a little bit thinner and the rear Hankook has a fat sidewall, so it kind of gives you that rake and that aspect ratio back. So 19s do work. You also have to trim brake ducts. There's a lot to getting 19s on 992 GT3. You have to tie some harnesses out of the way. If you need more information, just feel free to email us.
So
At info@sagamotorsports.com.
or just DM us on Instagram.
Yeah, it's fine.
You get to those at some point too.
Yep.
You addressed the Hoosier Track Attack Pros.
No, I didn't address the Hoosier Track Attack Pros. I
That was,
haven't-
that was the first part of his question.
Okay, just my thoughts in general.
Yeah,
on
what's
Hoosier-
the verdict? What's the verdict on it?
I think it's a great tire for how long they last and how fast they are. I think you're better off just getting an R7. But if you're one of those breeds that likes to track your car, drive it to a Cars and Coffee, canyon drive it, I think the Track Attack is actually a really good option for you because it's going to have the grooves, and if you're stuck in a unforeseen rain, you're going to survive. You're not going to survive with an R7. It's that simple. So the Track Attack, they do, with me driving, they last less than R7s, and that's just because they have the treads in them, and that just causes like excess tear of the compound.
So, okay, so are you saying because of longevity purposes, you're not recommending the Track Attack?
For someone who's trailering the car to the track, right? For someone who's trailering the car to the track, tracking it, putting it back on the trailer, taking it home, I would recommend just going to R7s or going to Hankooks.
But is that for performance reasons?
It's for the life of the tire you're gonna get,
Okay.
and obviously you're gonna get a little bit more lap time. The Track Attack, what it allows you to do is get to
It's like
somewhat,
a hybrid tire, so
yeah,
to speak, where you
get
can-
close to that lap time, but you could drive in back and forth and just be okay if it rains. At least that's the way I see it. Or the tire may have just been made to fit a regulation set and compete in things like Super Lap Battle because it's a 200 treadwear tire that
Yeah.
feels like a 40 treadwear.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when you took those out for the autocross that we did, and it was wet at the beginning, and you were like, "This sucks."
Yeah, there's nothing there.
So, and maybe it might have had to do with the fact that we didn't get any heat in them, because you know
Oh, as soon as we got heat in them,
they got better.
they got better, even in the
So-
water.
So I don't know. Well, there you have it. 3 generations, 1 roof. Hope he answered your question. If not, just reach out to us on Instagram. Drop us an email, and we'll get back to you. But Felix, I think we've beat the traction control dead horse down to a pulp at this point.
For sure.
Thanks to everybody for joining the chat and contributing to the conversation. I know we've had the Dundon 4RS boys were in there arguing about who's spinning, which is always entertaining. So next track event that we will be at what, ECR?
Yep.
Not this weekend, upcoming weekend, which we will have a live before that weekend. So if you're going to be attending, hop on the live, harass Felix now before we get to the track and he's harassed by everyone. And as always, leave your comments down below. Hit us up on Instagram and all the socials. And we'll catch you guys for the next time.
See ya.